Look closely at the person who walks through life completely alone. Not lonely. Not rejected. Alone. The person who disappears for weeks, sometimes months. The one who doesn't chase invitations, doesn't force conversations, and somehow seems strangely at peace inside their own silence. Society sees this person and immediately reaches for a diagnosis. They're antisocial. They're emotionally unavailable. They must be broken. Because in a world obsessed with connection, solitude looks suspicious. But what if we've misunderstood them completely? What if the person with the smallest circle is actually operating with the strongest psychological filter? Because psychology suggests something uncomfortable. Some people are not failing at human connection. They are rejecting low-quality connection. And that difference changes everything. We live in a time where popularity is confused with intimacy. Followers are mistaken for friendships. Constant messaging is mistaken for closeness. And being surrounded by people is somehow treated as proof that a person is emotionally healthy. But look carefully. Some of the loneliest people on earth are surrounded by crowds. And some of the most psychologically stable people walk completely alone. Not because they have no options, but because their standards became too expensive for shallow relationships. If you've gone months, maybe years, without a tight group of friends, this may feel uncomfortable to hear, because there is a strong possibility you are not socially defective. Your brain may simply operate differently, a different emotional architecture, a different tolerance level, a different threshold for trust, depth, and mental peace. The circle around you may not be empty, it may simply be selective. And once you understand this, you stop seeing solitude as punishment and start seeing it as information. The first thing you notice about people who walk alone is brutal. They become intolerant of performance. Because most human interaction is performance. That sounds cynical, but stay with me. Walk into almost any social setting. Office parties, friend groups, family gatherings, bars, even casual hangouts, and watch carefully. Notice how people edit themselves, how honesty gets filtered, how personalities change depending on who enters the room, how someone smiles warmly in a person's face, only to become someone else the second they leave, how conversations quietly orbit approval, gossip, social status, invisible competition, and emotional negotiation. Most social systems do not run on truth. They run on performance. And for highly perceptive people, that becomes exhausting. Research in psychology consistently shows something fascinating. As self-awareness increases, tolerance for inauthenticity decreases dramatically. Because once your brain becomes trained to notice patterns, you stop hearing words. You start seeing motives. You notice hesitation, micro-expressions, tone shifts, the flicker in someone's eyes before they say something they don't fully mean. You notice when warmth feels rehearsed, when kindness feels transactional, when confidence smells strangely like insecurity wearing expensive clothes. And suddenly, socializing becomes strange. Not scary, not difficult, just exhausting. Because what most people call normal interaction starts feeling emotionally artificial. You don't leave early because you hate people. You leave because your nervous system gets tired of decoding contradictions. You feel the hidden tension in the room, the fake agreement, the subtle manipulation, the emotional performances everyone silently pretends not to notice. Eventually, you stop forcing yourself to stay, because sitting through shallow conversations begins to feel strangely painful. You try. You really try. You sit there politely, nod, smile, pretend to care about topics your brain abandoned 10 minutes ago. But internally, you feel trapped, like your soul is slowly suffocating under meaningless noise. And this becomes the painful misunderstanding. People assume your distance means arrogance, coldness, emotional detachment. But often, the opposite is true. You care too deeply, you feel too much. You simply stopped tolerating connections that require you to shrink yourself into someone easier to digest. So instead, you retreat. Not because solitude feels amazing, but because fake connection feels worse. And maybe that explains why your circle got smaller. Because you stopped mistaking availability for compatibility. You stopped confusing attention with loyalty. And you stopped lowering your standards just to avoid silence. The second thing most people misunderstand is this. You do not dislike people. You dislike shallow interaction. And those are not the same thing. Humans build relationships in two directions. Most people build horizontally, wide circles, many names, casual friendships, constant interaction, text chains, weekend plans, social maintenance. And there is nothing wrong with that. But some people build vertically, fewer people, much deeper connection. You do not want 10 surface-level friendships. You want one conversation that feels real. One person who speaks honestly. One connection where silence does not feel awkward. Where nobody gets offended if life becomes quiet. Where you do not have to constantly explain yourself. And this is where loneliness becomes complicated.
Because your brain rejects shallow stimulation, you cannot pretend forever. You try small talk. How's work? How have you been? Crazy weather lately. But after a few minutes, your mind starts starving, because internally you are asking different questions. Why do people become who they become? What secretly drives them? Why do smart people self-destruct? What happens to identity after suffering? Why do people betray trust so casually? What actually gives life meaning? You crave psychological depth, emotional honesty, existential conversations, the heavy things, the things people usually avoid. And because those conversations are rare, so are your connections, which creates a painful paradox. You may deeply want connection, but reject almost every available version of it, because fake closeness feels lonelier than being alone. Sometimes the seat next to you stays empty, not because nobody came, but because nobody stayed deep enough. And then there is the part nobody talks about. Sometimes your solitude is not philosophical, it is biological, because for some people, socializing is expensive, neurologically expensive. If you have ever left a dinner, family event, casual hangout, or even a phone call feeling strangely exhausted, you already know what this feels like. Some people walk into crowds and feel energized, alive, activated. Their nervous system feeds off stimulation. People recharge them. The room fills their battery. But for others, every interaction costs energy. Every conversation pulls from internal reserves. And it is not because you dislike people. It is because your brain processes more information than most people realize. You do not just hear words, you scan tone, micro-expressions, body language, tension, mood shifts, emotional undercurrents, power dynamics, contradictions, unspoken meaning. Your mind becomes a psychological surveillance system, constantly collecting information without permission, without rest, which means something simple for someone else feels mentally expensive for you. A crowded room becomes overwhelming. A dinner party feels like overtime. A phone call unexpectedly drains you, and after enough stimulation, you disappear. You stop replying, you isolate, you retreat into silence, not to punish people, not because you suddenly hate them, but because your nervous system needs recovery, stillness, mental space, silence. And people misunderstand this. They think, you changed, they're distant, they stop caring. But the truth? You are recovering from overstimulation because your system carries a higher social tax than most people. And solitude slowly becomes less of a preference and more of a necessity. Because eventually, peace becomes more important than participation. And this is where things become dangerous. Because people who walk alone often develop something society quietly fears: psychological independence. And once a person learns how to emotionally survive without constant validation, they become incredibly difficult to control. Most people build their identity externally. They need reassurance to feel stable, approval to feel worthy, attention to feel visible. The applause becomes emotional oxygen, the text back, the invite, the likes, the birthday messages, the constant proof that says you matter. And to be fair, that is deeply human. We all want belonging. We all want to feel seen. But people who spend long periods alone slowly build something different, an internal foundation, a private sense of self. You stop needing an audience for every achievement. You stop announcing every victory. You stop requiring emotional witnesses just to confirm your own existence. You celebrate quietly, you suffer quietly, you heal quietly. Sometimes, you even enjoy your own company more than crowded rooms. And that confuses people. Because in a world addicted to visibility, privacy looks suspicious, silence looks arrogant, self-sufficiency looks cold. People assume they think they're better, they don't need anyone, they're emotionally distant. But often, the truth is simpler. You just learned how to exist without being constantly emotionally fed. You entertain yourself, solve your own problems, sit with your own thoughts, fight your own darkness. And eventually, you stop fearing solitude, because solitude becomes familiar, even comforting. There is something powerful about knowing your emotional survival does not depend on the room liking you. Because once people realize they cannot socially starve you into submission, you become free, quietly free. And freedom often looks lonely from the outside. But the final truth about the empty circle is the heaviest one. Because most people are not born guarded. They become guarded, slowly, painfully, repeatedly. Sometimes the story starts early, a childhood where emotional safety felt unpredictable.
A house where love arrived with conditions. A room where you had to read moods carefully just to stay safe. Maybe trust broke too early. Maybe loyalty disappeared when you needed it most. Maybe life taught you something brutal without ever saying the words directly. Do not trust too easily. And the brain remembers. Always. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a high trust threshold, meaning your standards for emotional access become extremely high. Not because you enjoy distance, but because rebuilding yourself became too expensive. You know what betrayal costs. You know what manipulation feels like. You know what it means to finally trust someone, only to watch the entire thing collapse. So now, you observe, quietly, carefully. You watch patterns, consistency, character, integrity. You listen to what people say, but pay even closer attention to what they repeatedly do. Because words became cheap, and safety became sacred. This is why people misunderstand you. They think you are difficult to know, difficult to reach, difficult to love. But that is not true. You simply stopped giving VIP access to people still acting like strangers. And if someone finally enters your circle, really enters it, they discover something rare: loyalty, depth, presence, honesty. Because people who guard their heart the hardest often love the deepest, once trust is earned. So if you look around your life and notice empty seats, pause before calling yourself broken. Maybe the problem is not that your circle is small. Maybe your standards simply became sharper. Maybe your nervous system became wiser. Maybe your mind learned the difference between noise and connection. Because there is a huge difference between being alone and being surrounded by people who make you feel invisible. And maybe, just maybe, the empty circle was never empty at all. Maybe it was selective, a quiet boundary protecting your peace, your energy, your standards, your healing. The truth is, some of the strongest minds in history walked alone for seasons. Not forever, but long enough to understand themselves without interference. Long enough to stop begging the world for permission to exist. Long enough to build something solid inside. So if your season feels quiet right now, do not panic. Rest in your fortress, protect your peace, refine your standards, and trust that the people meant for your circle will recognize the depth when they find it. Because the right minds never fear silence. They understand it. And sometimes, the rarest people arrive only after you stop chasing crowds. The circle is not empty. It is selective.